Hi, welcome to the video lectures from Shivananda Sharma Memorial RV College. This is Shivananda Sharma Memorial RV College is one of the premier institutions run by the prestigious RV group of institutions. We have come up with a unique initiative to engage students at the time of this unforeseen medical emergency caused by the corona outbreak. As a socially responsible institution, we would like to connect academically with students to make good the losses caused. In this connection, I, Gokul from the Department of BBA has posted a video on the subject banking regulations and operations and the topic negotiable instruments. Please watch the video till the end and like, share and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and also share the video with your bank account. The payee of the check will not get the money across the counter. He cannot receive the money in cash. The money will be credited to the particular person's bank account. Okay. Then there are different types of crossing. One is a general crossing, another is a special crossing, another is a not negotiable crossing. One is a general crossing, which I told very clearly that it's like any other crossing, which I said two parallel lines on the top of it. Special crossing is where, for example, you are giving a check to somebody else and that person has multiple bank accounts, but you are paying the amount to a particular bank. So on the top of the between the parallel lines, you will write, for example, if a person has account in SBI, HDFC Bank and ICICI Bank, on the check you are writing HDFC Bank only. That means to say the person has to clear the amount only from HDFC Bank. He cannot take it to SBI or to ICICI Bank for clearance. That is what you call it as special crossing, where the bank name is very clearly mentioned there. Then the next is not negotiable crossing. If it is not negotiable crossing, is if in between the parallel lines, if they write not negotiable, that means to say a person who has received that check cannot negotiate it, cannot transfer it to somebody else. Well, strictly it doesn't say no transfer. It cannot say, it doesn't specify anything about it, but the only thing is there's a lot of risk if you transfer that. But for example, if A gives a check to B and B in turn transfers it to C, there is a risk involved, because if the check is dishonored, then C will also not get a better title. Then endorsement of a check. What is endorsement? Endorsement is, I get a check from somebody, I had to pay to somebody, so I give it to somebody else. So that means to say, literally, if you understand the meaning of endorsement, endorsement actually means writing on the back of the check. That is, in simple terms, transferring of check to another person. That means, as I always say, A had to pay to B, B had to pay to C. So A gave a check to B, B in turn gives the same check to C. What does he do? He writes it, he just writes endorsed on the back of that check, and it must be signed by the holder. So whoever is the person, in this case A has to sign it and give it to B, B has to sign it and give it to C. That means to say B has endorsed that check to C. The signature can be the front of the check, back of the check, or another slip of paper which is then attached to the check. That means to say, if I'm endorsing it, I can write it on the front of the check. If there's no space, you can write it on the back of the check, or if you still have no place there, you can take a different slip of paper and write it. See, these are things which we know, which we do not encounter in our day-to-day lives, but please understand that if you have a slip of paper attached to a check and you endorse it, it is still valid. Okay, and it can have multiple endorsements till maturity date. What is multiple endorsements? Let us take this example. A had to pay to B, B had to pay to C, C had to pay to D, D had to pay to E. Okay, so the chain is there. In this case, A gives a check to B, B gives it to C, C gives it to D, D gives it to E, and the chain continues, and the last person to receive it will be Z, for example. So that means, so see, there has already been 25 endorsements which has already happened, and the 26th person is Mr. Z who is receiving it. So till the maturity date they can keep endorsing it. Okay, that is what. There are different types of endorsements: general endorsements, restrictive endorsements, partial endorsements, conditional endorsements. What are those? Let us go through that. What is general endorsement? As I told you a previous example, a very simple way of endorsing it: you write on the back of the check or the front of the check or on the slip of paper, and you endorse it to transfer it to somebody else. What is restrictive endorsement? Restrictive endorsement is where you say that the money has to be paid to B or C, to A or B only. Very specifically, you are mentioning the name of that particular person. Okay, so and what is partial endorsement? Now coming to something called dishonor of a check, which is defined under section 142. There is a separate video on dishonor of a check in our SSMRV video lectures. Please search for that video and you'll be able to understand the entire concept better. Now I'm going to just tell you just give you a highlight about how the check can be dishonored and what are the reasons for the dishonor of a check. First and foremost, if your funds are insufficient, the banker can dishonor your check. What is dishonor? Dishonor means not making the payment. Okay, so second is if the account stands closed, then the check stands dishonored. Third is if there is an instruction from the drawer not to make the payment. For example, A gives a check to B, but then A instructs his bank not to pay B when he comes with that check. He gives a stop payment instruction. Then the banker has to follow the instructions from A and he cannot make the payment to B. Then if there's a and it is a big criminal offense nowadays. Dishonor of a check is a criminal offense. You'll be tried in the court of law, and then now these are some steps. For example, dishonor of a check. What happens if the check is dishonored? The holder of that check has 15 days time to send a he has a 30 days time to send a legal notice to the drawer and ask him the reason for this. And after 15 days, he can uh, ask for payment, and after 15 days if there's still no payment, then he has to wait for another 15 days, and after 15 days, that means to say 30 days plus 15 days plus 15 days, that's almost 2 months. After 2 months he can go ahead and file a case in the court of law. And what is the punishment? The punishment would for a check bounce or a check dishonor would be 2 years imprisonment and double the amount to be paid sometimes. Okay, and these are some typical questions which I ask from negotiable instruments from an examination perspective. Explain the concept of negotiable instruments. Give a brief outline of Negotiable Instrument Act 1881. Differentiate between checks and bills of exchange. Differentiate between bill of exchange, promissory note. Differentiate between checks and demand draft. Explain the concept of endorsements of a negotiable instrument. What is meant by dishonor of a check. Explain in detail. Explain the legal implications of dishonor of a check. So I hope I have made the concept clear through all the 3 videos. Do not miss the videos. Watch it from the beginning, part 1, part 2, part 3. Only then you'll be able to understand the sequence of it. Otherwise the video